My son Iggy was only 15 when he ended his life in April 2019. He'd not long been identified autistic after really struggling with a lot of severe anxiety attacks, which a psychiatrist then correctly identified as actually being autistic meltdowns. Yes, he was anxious, but she said the underlying cause of that anxiety was autism spectrum disorder. Autism doesn't make one inherently mentally ill or anxious or suicidal, but going through life being wired differently and not understanding that, not being able to lean into your strengths and exercise the right kind of self-care and get the support that we need, it can make things a lot worse. Iggy found his anxiety very difficult to cope with, and it was very hard for him to de-escalate from meltdowns. It never stopped him looking forward to the future though, planning for his DV, his work experience. He wanted to be a mechanic. He was obsessed with cars. There were a lot of things that brought Iggy joy. He had so much to live for. But this world was inhospitable to him. This has to change. It needs to be easier to identify and diagnose neurodevelopmental conditions, not just in kids but adults as well. It needs to be easier for us to access adequate support and learn how to support ourselves and learn compassion. Not only that, kids need to be brought up not to identify differences in others and exploit them as weaknesses. We all need to bring up our kids not to mock people for being weird and different. Humanity being diverse is a very good thing. We're not meant to all be the same. Different is okay. Weird is wonderful. I would like a message of acceptance of human differences to proliferate across society, but that's not enough. We need to promote understanding and acceptance of neurodevelopmental differences such as autism and ADHD. We need to be able to recognise them and screen for them easier. And if kids with neurodevelopmental differences need mental health support, they should be able to access it, and it should be appropriate. Iggy saw a child and adolescent psychiatrist. We went private with Iggy because I had private medical insurance through work, but he ranted in those sessions. He had 6 sessions, he got stuff off his chest, but the psychiatrist never got to the heart of what was really causing him issues. She discharged him back to the care of his GP, saying he was basically okay. So losing him came as a complete bolt from the blue. His sister, Z, she had a serious mental health crisis, and because she was diagnosed autistic, I didn't have private medical insurance at that time and referred her to CAMS. And she was in crisis, but CAMS fobbed her off, saying that she wasn't exhibiting anxiety over and above what we would expect in an autistic adolescent. This is not good enough. We're lucky she's still with us. We need to be able to identify and support neurodivergent children and adolescents and young people. And for those of my generation that missed that, we've been diagnosed late, many of us never at all. Many people who are suicidal are so because they have an unidentified difference and they are not getting adequate support. Just listen to any of the many autism and ADHD advocates who talk about their lived experience. They always talk about feeling suicidal when they were unsupported and didn't understand why they struggled with things that their intellectual peers took for granted, why they had issues with accessing education, holding down a job, relationship difficulties, sometimes being vulnerable to abuse. We need to work out what's happening here and make sure that people are not struggling like that, that this world is inhabitable for all kinds of minds. And we need to teach psychological safety, psychological skills and resilience. We need to bolster some egos and protect self-esteem. People need to know that all brains are different, and that doesn't mean that some of us are defective, that we've all got a place on this earth and in this society. Different is okay. Let's make this world hospitable for everybody.